Let's have a look at some of the punctuation rules that everyone should know. We could also talk endlessly about rules for punctuation, which rules have changed as writing styles have changed, and which will stay the same no matter what. But we've decided to just focus on the punctuation marks that seem the most problematic for business people. And those are the poor apostrophe, the overused comma, and then when to use what when it comes to hyphens and dashes. So let's start with the apostrophe. There are two types of apostrophes. Apostrophes in contraction, which indicate where letters or sometimes even whole words have been left out. For example, shouldn't for should not, she's for she is, and years for years of experience. And apostrophes to show possession. And this is where something belongs to something else or relates to something else. This is the apostrophe that causes most of the problems, but it's actually not that difficult to get right if you think about it logically. For singular nouns, you need to add an apostrophe and then an S to indicate that something belongs or relates to something else. Let's have a look at some examples. The teacher's desk, the boy's bag, the tree's fruit. For plural nouns that already end in an S, it would be really silly to still add an apostrophe and then another S. So, all you do is add an apostrophe after the S. Here's some examples. The teacher's meeting, the boys' change room, and all the tree's fruit. And that's it. It's really quite logical and easy when you think about it. And there's another thing we need to mention when talking apostrophes. That is, don't use an apostrophe in a plural if you're talking about dogs, BMWs, or tattoos. None of these have apostrophes. They are simply plurals. And yet, so many get it wrong so often. Can you spot the error in each of these images? And, more importantly, can you correct it? Right, you should have picked up it's teas and coffees with no apostrophe because they are plurals and not possessives. Alright, it should be customers parking with an apostrophe after the S because it's clearly a plural. It's not just one parking lot for one customer. Okay, and it should be Sportsman's Warehouse with an apostrophe S, singular, possessive. The comma is another punctuation mark that causes absolute chaos, mostly because it's often overused or not used in the correct place. Let's read this together, and if you get it, well, you know your story when it comes to commas. If you don't, you need to pay really careful attention to the next few slides. Commas are not condiments. Do not pepper sentences with them unnecessarily. But a well-placed comma is the difference between what is this thing called love and what is this thing called love, and between let's eat, Grandma, and, well, you know the rest. You get two types of commas that you insert for clarity and commas that you insert for effect. Let's have a look at commas for clarity. Commas for clarity are a bit easier than commas for effect. Right? It's that comma you insert in between items in a list or before you break off to add extra or non-essential information into a sentence. Let's have a look at this example. They finally found the money in an odd pair of black socks tied together with string in the laundry chute. Okay, so the main sentence is they finally found the money in the laundry chute. The bit about black socks is extra, and that is why it is between the commas in the middle. Let's look at another example. He said he would pick them up at 8 a.m. the next morning at Bean's coffee shop, which was next door to their hotel. Again, all the extra info comes after the comma. And then we've got commas for effect, and these guys are a little bit trickier. These are the commas that you insert to indicate that the reader must pause for dramatic effect. Let's have a look at some examples. She was assertive, not aggressive. The pause in between the two descriptions makes the point much more powerful. And if you read these without the comma or the pause, they just don't sound right. If you are not sure how to do this, let me know. Susan, can you run this meeting for me? Okay, and a quick last point on commas. Very often, inexperienced writers run two complete thoughts together by using a comma instead of a full stop. This has a name and is called a run-on sentence. And what it does is it makes it really difficult for the reader to digest the first time, they would usually have to read it a few times until they can figure out where the break should be. Let's have a look at this example. John called, he has arrived and will phone again later. At first, when you read this, it's a little confusing, right? How about this? John called, he has arrived and will phone again later. Right, now it makes instant sense. Agree? Good, let's move on. And one last thing we'd like to cover on the punctuation front is hyphens, because many people don't realize just how helpful they can be to your reader. And by default, we'll also talk about dashes, as many people simply don't know there's a difference. So let's actually start there. A dash comes between words. Here's an example. Bob was tired, exhausted, but he knew he could not stop. A hyphen comes between two letters in what are known as compound words. Here's some examples. Mother-in-law, year-to-date, and good-hearted. As you can see, compound words are words that are made up of more than one word. Now the hyphen shows that all the component words have a combined meaning, right? And this is very helpful to your reader to easily get the meaning of the compound word or phrase. Let's have a look at some examples to explain what I mean. He loved the 250-year-old trees. This means that the trees were 250-year-old, right? How about now? He loved the 250-year-old trees. This could be read as there are 250 trees that are all 1 year old. How about this example? You should continue to build up your pension. Now the two words build up are part of the verb in the sentence. Okay? And she said there was a build-up of plaque on her teeth. Here the two words build up are a compound noun.